Hello, lovely beings. I'm JJ Rose. I have a very special guest with me today, and it is my dear friend, Jason. Say hi, Jason.
Hi.
For those of you who don't know Jason from the Discord, you may know him from the uncomfortable episode number 140, Breaking the Ties, A Life Not Lost. And just like in the episode that Eric from Uncomfortable did with Jason, there are a ton of trigger warnings, and I am going to put those on this episode today. There will be a little bit of adult language, but there are going to be a lot of very rough things that we're going to be discussing. It is going to definitely get a lot lighter towards the end. He's here, he's great, he's wonderful. So everything worked out. But I do feel it's important to convey certain things that occurred because when he went on the Uncomfortable show, deliberately, there were certain things that we had a convo about in advance and decided to sugarcoat or quote unquote dumb down or just not say because we didn't want to freak out everybody. And obviously, Eric has a much bigger listenership than myself, which is fine. So, Jason, hi.
Hi.
So, for those of you listening, I want you to understand a few things. Number one, I consider Jason an extremely close friend. Known you what for about a year and a half almost.
Yeah.
Um, we've
Wow.
definitely gone through some big stuff together, which we're going to get into. And I love and adore him like a brother. So you might hear me tease him a little bit and we kind of banter and it's just how we communicate. And I want you to know there's no disrespect whatsoever. It's completely and utterly out of love and just how we communicate to make things a little lighter in topics that are not always so light. So, Jason, I'm going to have you take it away. The uncomfortable episode pretty much did a great job of talking about your younger years and everything that led you up into the point when I kind of entered. But let's start at basically when you heard about me or when I popped into your head.
Yeah. So again, fast forwarding, listen to Eric's podcast and listen to all of them because Eric's amazing. I
He
love that
is.
guy. So we're gonna jump ahead from there. So meeting JJ was amazingly terrifying. I'll say it like that because it was so cool. I met her in a dream. Um, so back then, I had empty places in my dreams I would go to just get away from everything. One of them was a baseball field and this weird locker room that was just an infinity locker. There was no end to it, and it was kind of a way to escape from things because, if you go, there's no end, so you can't find anything in there. Um, so this is my empty space. This is not a place anything else ever is there. Nothing. And I happened to be in my empty place one night, and there is a blonde girl with a ponytail comes up to me and says, "We need to meet." And I am genuinely shocked because that's not supposed to happen. Uh, I've had I've had this empty space since I was a child and nothing ever. So that was weird. I went into the locker room, and inside the room was a table with four people sitting around it under a light talking amongst themselves. I couldn't really see their face. I saw the girl with the ponytail. With them was a man that was with a deep voice that was coughing, and then another guy who had a crazy English accent, and then another girl. And they were talking amongst themselves. I was on the outside, and that was weird. And then I woke up. Thinking to myself, "That's really weird." So the next day, a friend of mine sends me a podcast, and I've never listened to a podcast before this. Not my thing. She says, "Hey, you got to listen to this podcast." And when I listened to it, there was a guy that was coughing with a deep voice, a guy with a funny accent. You can guess which one he was if you listen to the episode. And then two women talking. And I lost my shit because I have never had that happen. So I sent her a message eventually, and I think it was something like, "Hey, I saw you in my dream. We need to meet because yeah, you just lead with those soft opens." Yeah.
It's legit. I'm pretty used to being messaged with odd things like that at this point, so it doesn't rack me. I'm like, okay. So you basically, message me, yeah, you were in my dream. The episode that he's referring to is the PSA episode that was done January of 2023. It was myself, Emily, and Eric from Uncomfortable, and Tommy from Let's Get Freaky, who has a lovely English accent, I might add. So
I love it. I just love him do movies all the time.
he's so fun. So the interesting thing is, up until that point, I had never shown my face. Um, I had done a few interviews before then. I had always done them with the camera off, much to the podcaster's disdain, because they usually like looking at somebody and talking. And I said, nope, camera off. I don't want to show my face. So when I had called for the PSA, I'm going to resume after that little fun technical interesting thing happened. So So basically, in the PSA episode, because I had called it and I was so uncomfortable with fun, with asking, two podcasters that I'd only known for a couple months, hey, can you drop everything and basically record with me and put this out to your audience? It's, dire important. I had agreed to show my face. So that was actually the first time ever that I'd ever shown my face to anyone. I mean, before that, no one knew what I looked like. So when you come along and you're like, I saw you, and I definitely asked some questions of people, beforehand, like, okay, well, did you describe what I looked like to him? They were like, no. And the fact that I came to you in a ponytail is odd because I always wear my hair down when I'm doing work or interviews. So kind of something that you couldn't have known, right? So you and I end up having a conversation, and I had been pre-warned about you that you did not talk normally, that you were kind of difficult to communicate with because there was a thought that there was something else kind of running the show. So you and I get on the phone together, and I think you started off the call with, let me tell you a story. And then you kind of rambled on and riddles. You did not talk like a normal person at all. It was very hard to follow you. And I think I let you go for like 5 to 7 minutes. That was my polite zone, quote unquote. And then I basically just said, okay, stop. I totally understand what's happening here. You tell me when you want it gone and like we'll do the work. And you were like, okay. And so we got off the phone, and I'm sitting on my couch just minding my own business, and all of a sudden there's like a 9 foot indigenous man in my living room just staring at me. And I'm like, well, hello. And basically I said, how did you get in here? And he just kind of like shrugged. And I said, okay, well, you're from him, aren't you? And he nodded. And I said, well, I get it. You're checking me out. And he nodded again. I said, okay, well, you've seen enough. You've seen what you need to, you need to leave now, please. And then I messaged you, hey, did you intentionally send him or not? And your answer at the time was, I'm sorry, that's happened before.
Mhm.
And the reason why I'm including it in this recording is because it's extremely important to understand that just because a person has an attachment, it doesn't mean they're completely alone in the desert by themselves, that like spirit just takes off. They still have a spirit team that is watching out for them. And one of your spirit teams, this gentleman that popped into my home, he was someone who would make sure whoever was trying to help you or work with you was adequate to be able to do the job, being protective of you. And there was a tiny part of you that knew that that was there, but you weren't in control of it, obviously. And I think that's really important because a lot of people think like someone who's possessed or has an attachment, like they're just off on an island, right? Like spirit almost forgets about them. Spirit forgets about nobody. But that being said, and what we're going to get into when we get to what actually happened is important because you weren't somebody who could work with just anybody. Like you were a very special case. You definitely needed someone who knew how to do an attachment removal, um, i.e., an exorcism, and to do it well enough that you were protected, but also in a position where you weren't going to feel off kilter because you really weren't a religious person. So that aisle wouldn't necessarily work for you, and you have serious trust issues. And duly noted and 100% on point because you never really had a lot of people really pull through for you that should have pulled through, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So, okay, so we had that interaction, and then we fast forward. I think it was about all this happened in like a period of about 2.5 weeks. It was pretty quick. And I basically told you, balls in your court. You let me know when you want to do this, and I'm gonna let you take it away for the fun part.
Yeah, the fun part. Yeah, it was hard. Asking for help is hard. When you are an absolute superstar like me, it's harder. I was scared. That's what it was. I was terrified. I had things telling me, "Don't. It's not gonna work. This is BS. It's all nothing works. This doesn't work. This is who you are, and this is what you chose to be." And that's not true, come to find out.
Hmm?
Um, yeah, I had another conversation with you, and at that point, I had made my decision, to take a long nap, if y'all get it.
Dirt nap.
But I had decided that was it, and that was my last final swing was to accept your help and go for it. And then, yeah, you did.
I think it's important for people to understand that this wasn't like a remote plan that you had to exit stage left. This was you had everything in hand and ready to go. I mean, that's how close we were. We were a couple pounds of pressure on a hand away from losing you.
Yes.
Gonna try not to cry through this.
Please don't, and let's
Yeah.
let's let YouTube not get after us for this, but yes, it was
Yeah.
very, very bad.
Yes. So I basically say, okay, you said let's do this, let's do this, and take it away.
Yeah. Sorry, I need the prompts.
Yep.
So, then, then it gets really interesting, so I said, "Let's do this." Um, and I don't remember that little area of time frame. I remember it was daytime outside, I was at my home. Um, she sends me a you sen I'm sorry, you send me a message, I'm going in, and I was like, "Okay," and this whole time, I have these thoughts. "This isn't working. This is stupid. This doesn't work. This isn't for you." And they just became deafening, and that's all I could hear, and she sent me a message, and for anyone that doesn't know, when you're going through things like this, texting is, like, the hardest thing in the world to do, so you really gotta focus, and I think that helped me get the message through her because I was trying to fight it, and it was fighting me. Um, and so then from there, uh, what happened? You told me to lay on the ground, and you said you're gonna put earmuffs on, and when you did that, it became silent. All I could hear was my thoughts, and it That's a very rare thing for me to ever have. I usually have 600 conversations before I have a conversation. So that was weird in itself. But I had nothing in there. And then I came off the freaking ground. And I don't mean like exorcist style, 8 feet off the bed, but there was air under my back, under my legs. And a normal person would something weird happens, you stand up and you go, "What the heck?" Well, when I tried to, I couldn't move. I've seen paralysis. It was like that, but it wasn't that. I could still move my eyes. I still thought I had full function of everything, but I could not move. And then kind of like a if you drop something on the ground, like it came back, I hit the ground, and she said, "You said, it's out. How do you feel?" I said, "I need a minute." And I went and sat in the shower for 2, 3 hours, and I just cried from losing the emptiness. Now that sounds backwards, but that's I was filled up with so much stuff that I did not know how to process. I don't get that stuff very often, so I did not know how to do that. I did not know how to do that. Just letting all that emptiness I had fill up, it's hard to describe even to this day. But that was the beginning of learning how to human correctly, and
That's a good way
that
to put it.
has been a hard thing to do. And I have things there are things here like this wonderful Discord group. People actually get on there and say good morning and mean it. I've never had that. I've never had everyone do it. Normally, you'd be like, "What's so good about it?" Things like that, but they genuinely want you to have a good day, and that positivity is amazing. And I know saying good morning is a little thing, but for someone who doesn't feel that to feel it, it's a big deal.
I think one of the strongest takeaways is to have lived most of your life where you did not have true people that you could rely on and depend on and that were positive and really 100% had your back without wanting anything in return, just being true friends. And all of a sudden, you pull up and you've got like 20 of them, right?
Yeah,
And I mean, it's a little overwhelming in the beginning, and I get that. But I mean, what a nice way to just gently fall into, like you were saying, humaning correctly. Because you weren't before. You were surviving. You weren't living. You thought you were living. I mean, you have some wild tales, don't get me wrong. Like you've lived a very interesting life. And you did a great job of explaining a lot of that on Eric's show, which is why I'm glossing over all that and saying go listen to that episode. And you've done so many things, but you weren't enriched inside because
mm,
you were almost living in this vacuum with this thing just sucking all of the light from life in general from you. And I'm not gonna lie, your release date, shall we say,
sure. Day
um
of freedom.
exactly, and we have it on the calendar. That was a very interesting one because I'm not physically with you, but I'm there with you. I can see you. I'm responding to everything on message, but I didn't want the phone on because I know that you were in a place where you were going to need to emote and you wouldn't want anyone hearing that. And I get that. Everyone's different. Some people are like, no, I want to cry. I want like a witness. Most people, if you're anything like myself, we don't want witnesses. Let me go cry alone. Go away. so, and I get that. So, we have this release with you, and your entire life pretty much changes on a dime. You're able to, see differently, hear differently. You're not having all these obstructive voices in your head with all this negativity. You're filled up with light. You've got all these beautiful light workers suddenly in your life. And there's a lot of light workers who are newer to the path and they mean well. They're somewhat practiced, right? But getting to the level of doing what I do, you guys got to remember, I've got a lot of years on this planet. And I have looked the exact same as I do now since I was 13 years old. But I grew up without the internet, so you can figure out how old I probably am. So I say that to say that I come from a long line of people who were like me and had this calling. So I am very well versed in what happens, what to do, how my protections work, etc. I know what I'm doing. It's not just like I wanted to heal somebody and took a class by someone named Sarah in the desert for 2 days and, decided to start a YouTube channel. No offense to Sarah, but um, whoever she may be. That being said, you had some people when you were first freed who very, very well intentioned reached out to you to try to do some energy work with you because you were obviously healing, right? A lot. And
Yeah.
and them not fully understanding, just because someone no longer has the attachment doesn't mean that they're completely clean and clear and squeaky clean, right? Like you're still dealing with a person who has been very damaged. There's a whole reason why, like, when it comes to 12-step programs, they tell people, like, don't get in a relationship for a year. It's because, you need to get fully free and clear from it and, like, live your life without it for like a good year for you to fully comprehend and understand what's going on within yourself and then to be able to handle interactions with extreme depth. And it's interesting because almost the same thing goes for people who are doing energy work. And I remember we had one really close call, this, very well intentioned person who thought they knew what they were doing. And you thought, okay, they're offering, why not? And they start to do work, and there was this whole blowback that ended up happening. And they were not in a position where they should have been doing that. And that is not your fault. Okay. That is not a position that you even knew at the time could happen. You were so new to everything. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because it's really, really important as we progress through our gifts and on our journey that we understand what we don't know just as much as what we know. And there are times and people that you can say, hey, I'm working on this. Would you mind if I practice with you? Cool. You do it with someone who you know is like on a similar level with you. You don't go to the person who just had an attachment removed like 2 months ago and they're still reeling from it all and say like, "Oh, I want to go do some energy work on you," and then wonder why everything explodes in a blaze of glory. So it's very important not only for you being the person who's released to understand but also for other people who are well intentioned to understand. And this is a conversation that you and I had also very early because when you got rid of this thing, a couple months out, you're like, how can I start growing and developing my gifts? And I said, I want you to just slow down and just start enjoying your life. And you were very confused by that, right? Because you wanted to go, 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 go. And I said, take a moment and just enjoy your life the way that it is. Like, slow everything down. You're going to get there, but Rome wasn't built in a day. And you need to take a moment. Like, you're going to give back in the long run. And you have so much. Even just between you and I've called on you for some hefty help over the past year and a half that I've known you. But the point that I'm getting at is there's a lot of people who come out of a situation like yours or come out of like a healing catharsis or whatever word anybody's calling it now. So many words. And they instantly I want to hit the ground running. I want to go. I want to give back. I want to do this. Take a moment and just reflect and let everything settle for a minute. And once you finally got that through your head and you actually like took a moment and let kind of life settle a little bit, I noticed this inner peace came across you that you never have had before. And,
Yeah.
as someone who cares about you, it was really cool to see.
Yeah, I didn't get free and then turned into this perfect person. I
No.
did not. I get angry, I do stupid things, I have plenty of write-ups at this job from running my mouth. I do. I but it's all new to me, and I
Yeah,
don't know when to stop because how do you know? I've never had to deal with this before. This whole human experience is a new version that it's and so, yeah, someone says, "Hey, you wanna try something?" Hell yeah, I wanna try something. Probably should think harder before just saying yes.
yeah, it's a good way to put it. So, going into this, let's talk a little bit about astral travel because this was one thing that had come up um, when you had slowed down a little bit because you were trying really hard to do it, and I told you you just need to stop, like stop trying to do too much and just be for a little bit. And then, like a month or something later, you're like, "Hey, I had like the craziest experience," and you take the floor.
Oh, I went places. So, I don't claim to be an astral traveler or anything like that. When it happens, I'm just as surprised as everybody else. Um, and it was weird because I was trying to like, okay, I can do this one now, and I was like trying to make my feet sweat, and nothing happened. And out of nowhere, I've got the suspicion now that it was done to show me where I can go, not where I need to be right now. That was the feeling I got from it, and that in itself is pretty cool. And I'm gonna try to describe it.
Please, because I've had a lot of other people come up with something similar, and it's very unique. And this will also move us into the next part that we're going to talk about with your site.
So when I close my eyes, when we all close our eyes and they say visualize a waterfall, and in your mind's eye, you see a waterfall. You see it hitting the river and the rocks and nature around it and all that cool stuff. Me, some other people I know, again, to be frank, we don't see shit. It is black. It's just black mud, smoke. It moves. There's movement in there if you stare hard enough, but you don't see anything. I cannot visualize. So when this happened, I do dream and I have interesting dreams. I have dreams with messages and then that, subconscious mind vomit, that's your other dreams. But for this, I was awake. I was aware. At that time, I was doing all the practices JJ had told me to do: grounding, clearing tube, bubbles, rod to God, all of them. And out of the blue, I was laying there doing my thing because I try to do it every night, and I'm still consistent with it every night. That is, if I don't get it in the day, I will do it every night. And then everything started spinning. Um, if you just spin in a circle and stand there for a minute, close your eyes, that's exactly what it felt like. Everything was spinning. And I felt something standing near me. The first few times that happened, that scared the shit out of me because there's still that fear there that things can come back, that I did something wrong and I'm going to ruin all of this. There's the doubt, of course, but
Mhm.
you get through it. And then I realized that these things weren't bad. I got a lot better idea what it was now. But the room started spinning. I kept my eyes closed because I had the thought to work through it. So I did. And this is where it gets weird. My eyes are closed. I'm fully conscious. I'm aware. I'm thinking. White started filling my vision space. Just bright white light, and it collapsed all of that blackness into a tiny fine line. The line curled and started spinning, and then it just popped off. The white kind of faded into the coolest metallic purple that's not really purple thunderstorm thing looking stuff. It was super rad. I mean, it was like straight up 80s. It was amazing. and something told me go through it. So I went through it, and then I started seeing things. That time I saw 3 things, and I didn't see it. I was there. I could smell the air. I could feel one of them. I was in a car, probably a Carmagia. I don't know why, but a little red car. I was passenger looking straight out, and I could see my best guess is a southern France villa. Just, those red clay tiles driving down a hill. I could feel the bumps. I could feel the vibrations of the motor. And at the time, the messages I'm getting were none because I was going, "This is so freaking cool. Oh my gosh." I was just losing it because it was amazing. And then I kinda just lifted out straight up into the sky, and I came back down at another place that was a quiet hill with a mountain range, and it had these very chalky, white, small stones, anything from a boulder size to a cup size, just all kinds, just stacked up on each other. That was an incredible place. And then I came out again, and I was just kinda, like, flying over my city where I'm at, and, I could point out all the places. In El Paso, there's a giant, humongous white light star on the mountain. I could clearly see it. I knew where I was, and then bam, slammed back down into my body and just, like, bolted up and ran out the room trying to process what just happened. Later, JJ is all like, "Oh, yeah, that's astral projection. You can't do that?" Well, no, I can't, but I did.
We can now. So,
Sometimes. It doesn't tell me when it happens. The second time was different, just as amazing, and I felt everything coming on again just like the first time, uh, up until the point where I got to the purple thunderstorm, it was the same. I went through that, and I was just kinda, like, plopped on a surface. The first thing I did was look up, and all I could see was the universe, for lack of a better term. It was stars. It was just open sky, bright sky, not like city lights. I looked down, and yet again, I lost my ever-loving mind. I think I saw the Akashic records as they were described by Casey, because after that, I went and looked through, and it was pretty much the same description. There was this just endless gold floor with writing on it. And Edgar Casey is somebody I've always followed, so I knew what those were. And yeah, I just kinda sat and processed it all. Again, no messages came through because I was losing my mind. I was so excited. This is awesome. This is so amazing. And I didn't think to take the time and actually pay attention to what I was doing. But aside from those experiences, it's there's nothing going on in there when you close your eyes. It's just black. It's smoke. It breaks through from time to time.
this is something that I've wanted to talk with you publicly about, and it'll end up leading into us discussing the Discord as well. But, to those of you who don't know, obviously, I follow a lot of really odd, weird stuff for different reasons. But one of the things that started popping up that I would hear about were people describing people as NPCs. And this is a video game reference for those of you who are like myself that were like, what are you talking about? Basically means non-person character. It's like a background person. And I would, at first I was like, okay, these must be gamers. And then I realized, no, these people were in the spiritual community and they were designating people as NPCs, basically saying that they have no souls, and that one of the ways you could tell who they are was the fact that they don't visualize. They're not able to see any images in their mind. Like if I tell you, oh, I ate a red apple, you don't in your mind see the red apple the way that I do. And besides the fact that this is extremely dehumanizing and scares the living bleep out of me, hearing people in a spiritual community talk about other people like this, we're supposed to be spiritual and deep. This is not religion, right? This is loving every single being on the planet, regardless if it's human or a tree or a rock or a bug, right? Everything has a soul and an emanation and a vibration. So hearing this discussion made me extremely nervous. And then some of the lines it was going down, and there have been some very public cases. If you want to know to what I'm referring, you can look up Lori Valet. I think that's her name. And there is a specific case where she was basically part of a religion, cult, I don't even know what you really call it, belief system. And basically, sorry, I need to get tea for this. Lori Vallow, I think it is. She ended up doing something horrific to her children, um, thinking that they didn't have souls, right? That they were part of these NPC people. And it goes deeper than that, obviously. But this is the line of thinking that I was hearing within the spiritual community. And then it was going out, to political religious communities as well. And the things that I were hearing were just awful, right? They completely dehumanizing and basically giving legitimacy to things that we don't condone whatsoever, especially if you're into light work. And so obviously, I know you, and at first because when I'm working with you, especially when you were free and starting to open up, you were wondering why like your third eye sight was gone. And I had told you, I think I had said it was like mud. And I knew that part of you had shut it off because, obviously what you were seeing in the past when that thing was present wasn't fun. So you had wanted it to shut off. But now that you were free, you were a little part of you was a little scared, like, well, if I start opening back up again, I'm going to see awful stuff, which is why I basically told you take a knee, take some time, just live your life and learn what it's like to live without this thing. And then a year and a half later almost, we were having conversations and you're still not able to visualize. And I've come across many other people who have the same thing. I didn't even know this was a thing, to be honest. Like it just I don't know why we're not all talking about what's going on in our brains all the time, but I have met numerous people now, both in the Discord and without, who are much like you. They're not able to visualize. They don't have images in their mind that are created when we're describing things. And so, for you, having that astral projection, not only both times when you were awake, is more validating and real for someone like you because you're not like me. It's not like you can just make this up in your imagination and see and feel and experience all these things. You don't have that capability. You have it. And so when you had these experiences, that's why, you were so overwhelmed with how cool everything was, right? Was simply for the mere fact that it's so cool because you've never had this before. So something real is going on. But it also comes down to I want to bring up the humanization of people like you. Doesn't mean you're an NPC because you're not able to imagine or visualize things in your mind. Your brain just works differently. And it doesn't even matter like if you're on the spectrum or if you have ADD or ADHD or any of that. Like I know people with all those things and without all those things who have this or don't have it. So there hasn't been one single line that I'm able to draw a connection of say, oh, okay, everyone who has this also has this, right? It's different. It's just what you came in with. And part of it also could be a protection measure as well, right? And for part of your growth. But that is something that I wanted to speak publicly on because not only is it horrific and mean, dehumanizing people, but someone like you who's gone through so much, I mean, people know you, people love you. And so you alone are validation that just because someone isn't able to make pictures in their mind doesn't mean that they're not a person.
It has also been a blessing in my career, which
That is
can I
true.
talk about that?
Yeah.
Let's try to stay off YouTube's radar for this one.
Yeah. Good
So,
luck.
for everyone that doesn't know, I'm a firefighter. I And I have learned also that this next part is part of my gift, part of what I get to do. And it's super gross, but it's something I'm good at. So I have the standing record here for the most fatalities. They are constant, they are regular. Generally every shift, everyone gets mad because I'm here, like, oh, someone's gonna die again. It's normal for me. Now I've seen. I'm not going to go into detail on them, but I've seen some awful ones.
Mhm.
There was one that just happened that it tore me up, and it's still there. It's still tearing me up, but I do not visualize. I do not relive that in my mind. I know about it. I remember it, and it sucks. But I don't have to see it every time I think about it or every time it comes in.
Or every time you close your eyes, right?
Yes, and that is a gift. That is an amazing thing that can make me keep dealing with these things. And I also wouldn't change it. I'm good at it. I don't know if any or you want me to go into detail on that. I don't mind.
Well, I think it's important to explain this because this is something that, you've had questions about and you've had different people tell you different things. Um, you know, one word in particular is medium, right? People who talk to the dead. And someone, I think, threw that word at you, and you were like, absolutely not. Like, it didn't sit well with you. And we talked about it, and I said, well, you're not a medium, though. And you were like, oh, thank God. And don't get me wrong, like being a
Yeah,
medium is a rough
I've
job. It's a rough job.
yes.
Just it is what it is. But you are not a typical medium. You're not channeling the dead. You're not having the dead speak to you. So technically, what you are is like a ferryman from times of old.
Mhm.
You help people cross over. So you're not talking to the dead. I mean, you have, but that's that's not your primary function or even really what happens on a regular. You are there at the most critical time in someone's life when they're passing from here to the beyond. You've had more than a few that have come back that you were pretty shocked about as well,
Yes.
um, which are awesome stories. But let's face it, when we pass away, could you imagine passing away of something really scary, no matter what it is, if it's health or just an accident or whatever, and being completely alone? But instead, you're there and you're gently holding their hand and you're helping them cross over so it's not so scary.
Yeah, that's a nice way to put it because I can't again, I have a sense of what it's like. And I do get physical sensations all the time. Those are unique. It's generally always passing over my right shoulder. Sometimes I'll get a brush on the cheek, but there's a light behind me and they go to it. And it varies. Sometimes it's a gentle holding hand. Sometimes it's a foot in the butt. Sometimes it's a no, not yet. We got
Mhm.
work or there's things to do, and they come back. Sometimes it's a ha, just kidding. You thought I came back, but I didn't. And there's so many, and it's a very hard thing to come to terms with. It's a harder thing to talk about because nobody wants to talk about death. It's part of life. It's gonna happen to all of us. It's just what it is. And is it gross? Yes, it's super gross. I do not recommend. Don't go do it. Don't be part
Well,
of this. It sucks.
okay, but let's just keep it real on that part. Obviously, you're a firefighter. You're not dealing with people in their finest hours, right? Like when people are calling, 911, or for an emergency, it's not because they're going gently into the night. It's usually because they're going kicking and screaming, and there's a lot happening. So when you say gross, yes, because obviously a lot of your situations aren't beautiful. And you know, as someone who has the utmost respect and care and love for our first responders, whether they're fire department, EMTs, CHP, God bless them, or whatever the highway patrol would be. Sorry, I'm in California. I just realized that's ours only. But the highway patrol or the police officers, sheriffs, constables, whatever you got going on. Okay. The people who respond to accidents. And like you were saying, it is a blessing that you're not able to visualize in your head because PTSD is a real thing. I've dealt with it. I know a lot of people else who have. And one of the things that happens with that is, when you close your eyes or you get these revolving memories and they come in and they're not pretty things. I mean, no one has PTSD from, something gorgeous and beautiful happening, right? So for you not to have to see that is a gift. So it's vitally important for people to know that there are people like you. You're not talking to the dead, you're not the medium, right? You're not no one is going inside of your energetic body ever again. No, 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 no.
Not for me.
And no, absolutely not. And but at the same time, you are there as a comforter, you are there as the ferryman in order to help people along on one of their biggest journeys in their life, which is to cross over, with death. And listen, it's beautiful. I've been there with people who have passed away. It is one of the highest honors. And it is also one of the most beautiful things that you can be there for because I don't care what your belief is. I don't care what your background is. You can believe there's absolutely nothing out there, complete atheist. But when you're there and you see someone who was alive and now they're not, you can't look at that corpse and tell me that something isn't different. That soul, that light, that essence is gone. And gosh, that's so special that you're able to be there for so many people. And also because you're capable. And so you're easing off other people, whether on your team or department, from having to experience a lot of the ones that you have, thankfully, because you're not going to be haunted by the images that you've seen. I mean, I know stuff gets to you. I don't want people thinking like you don't have emotions. Of course, you have emotions. You're
Oh,
filled with
yeah.
emotions and you're brimming with them. And that's okay. Everyone has emotions. It doesn't mean you don't feel, it just means, thank God, every time you close your eyes, you're not seeing those horrible scenes.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's and it's one of those things. I want to see more. I do. I'm not gonna, say I don't.
And
And
you
this,
will.
yeah, and this fog that I have in there, I've broken through it before. It takes a lot of work. But there is another side to it for all my other non-seeing people who are like that. There's something on the other side. It's there. It's awesome. It just for now for us, it takes a lot of work, but you got to commit to it. You got to work through it,
Mm-hmm.
and really cool stuff. And you can tell me all about it when it happens.
And I think it's really important. I made a little note here to discuss, when you're free from something big like you were, don't go traipsing mud back in your house after you mop. You've got to constantly be clearing. You've got to constantly be cognizant of what you're imbuing, right? What you're watching, what you're listening to, you're all those old habits and things that you used to do, right? And ways that you would deal with things, whether it's emotionally or physically or whatever it is, so that you're not allowing another doorway for something to get back in. And I have to commend you. You've been really, really cognizant. It's true because you have. you have been more mindful of little things. I notice, and like we're in pretty good communication. I mean, obviously, I'm not talking to you all day, but we kind of give each other like highlights every couple days, right? If anything weird or big happened. And I've heard you a couple times like, yeah, I was going to put on this movie and then I decided don't. And I was like, for you even to catch yourself, that's a big moment. So congratulate yourself on the little things because they add up. And I feel like sometimes we don't give ourselves enough credit. Um, and it's important. It's okay to be proud of yourself every once in a while. And I know you're going to give me that sheepish little look, and that's totally fine. And I will that's not a sheepish look. That's a weird look, but um it's it's important to be like you don't need to sit there with an ego, but just allowing yourself to be proud of yourself every once in a while, like, wow, I've really come a long way. That's good. Look at that. That also keeps your mind in check so that you can constantly remember where you came from and that you've made progress. Because I feel like a lot of people were really, really hard on ourselves. And I include myself in that because I'm like the queen of being hard on myself. But I'm also able to take those moments and take a step back and be like, yeah, but think about what I was doing 5, 10, 15, 20. I could keep going years ago, right? And who I was or where I was and what I knew, what I was doing, what I was capable of, and where I'm at now. It's big. So, on that weird note, I want to talk about a living person and how you and I have a penchant for once in a while living people's faces to change and messages to come through.
Um,
So you were in a bar, you were responding to a call, you were in a bar, and there was a nice, I'm just gonna call him a trucker because I figure he kind of looked like a trucker to me. And he was at the bar and he was like, thank you for your service. And you get all weird when people do that.
yeah.
And then all of a sudden his face completely contorted and he basically was like, the old gods are coming back soon.
Yeah, okay. I got you now. Remember. And this actually jumps back into a sense of medium. That's why I'm not cool with that.
Well, you're not a medium because these people are very alive.
Well, yeah, I know that's what I'm saying is the other person being the
Mm-hmm.
medium unknowingly a lot of times. Sometimes they do know, but
They were channeling, they're not mediums because this
there you
wasn't
go.
coming from dead people.
See, I don't know all the words either.
It's fine. I
So
get
they're
picky.
channeling people. I don't see things. I don't see things like that. But just actually from not trusting people, um, body language, how people act, how people are, I pick up on it a lot. I'm watching it because at the time I was always cautious. Who's trying to screw me over next? And that's a terrible way to be. But if you listen, you still learn a lot. A lot of them are messages will come through for me anyways, and everybody's different. They'll come through in different ways. One of them, you'll hear it in your mind. That is clearly not your mind. You'll get a message, you'll get a voice, an answer, you'll get something. Others, straight up medium. I'm speaking to old Frank and he's telling me to tell you this. And then there's other times where people don't even know it's happening. Their faces change. It's not horrifying, it's not ugly, but there are subtle changes that is clearly not the same face you were just looking at. And they'll say a thing, and then
And
they'll
it's
go right back to
yeah, like completely outside the realm of whatever you were talking about.
yes. And messages can come through like that. If you pay attention, you can see it. Their eye, it's not like their eyes go all black like supernatural.
No.
Um, Shout out to all my supernatural friends. So yeah, there is a change, and then the words come out, and I don't know if I'm the only one that sees this. I don't know if like spirit's just
No.
like, hey, this works for him, let's do it. But messages come through like that.
Yes, and they've happened to me as well. I think it happens more with you because you don't necessarily see. the same way that I do. And so, and also you're around a lot of people a lot. And so they just come through, they pop in, they have a message, they tell you, and then they're back to normal programming. So we've gone through a lot in this. Is there anything else that you wanted to fill in or discuss? Well, you've got the floor.
Yeah. I want to talk about all my homies in the Discord we've talked about. And for any of you that have skipped all these episodes to this one, that's not fair. Go back. But yeah, the Discord group is an incredible place. And every one of you in it, especially Goat of all people there, that one 100%
Sure.
the most. You guys are what has, because I am going through the hardest time in my life right now, but it's cool. I'll get through it. And then I have this group that came together, which, and everyone in the group says the same thing. I didn't know you all existed. None of us knew it. We're now not alone in this. And it has been such a blessing to have these people here. I mean, my gosh, there are days that is the only thing that gets me through the day without losing my mind is seeing things, just whether it's experiences or memes or whatever. It's just this place of happy positivity. It's amazing. And I don't even know how that thing got put together.
Well,
Everyone
you
asked
know,
me how JJ gets you in here. I was like, a dream. And they're like,
everyone's origin stories with me. I could do like a whole 3 hour episode on that someday, which I might actually do. But I actually have to give a huge thank you to Tina. Um, so my dear friend Tina and she would throw these random ideas at me. And immediately I would be like, no. She'd be like, start a Discord. I'm like, absolutely not. And she's like, but it would be so good. Like, do it. And this and that. And you know how I am. Like, things have to kind of hit me like 3 times, right? For me to really catch on and consider it. And she's talking it up. And I'm like, no, there's other Discords from podcasts. Like, I interact in those. It's fine. And then another person ended up bringing it up. And then another person. And when I went back to Bigfoot and Brews and did the 40 and Airways conferences, and I had a couple people who were in different discords for podcasts, and they came up and we had these very private moments where they opened up and they're like, I've never told anybody this. I didn't even know that like someone like you existed. Like, are there other people like us? And I was like, oh, sweetie, like you've lived alone your whole life like this. And it was one of those aha wake up moments for me that like there's a ton of us out there and a lot of you all have been alone. And I got back from that and I said, okay, you know what? I'm doing it. And I started the Discord and I thought there's going to be like 5 people in here. That's it. Like we're just all going to, talk amongst ourselves. And at first I thought, hey, maybe this is cool. I can post my dreams and just kind of see if there's continuity. And then it grew and it grew. And I have to say, with all thanks in my heart, there's no one is a big furt meanie. I try not to swear so much, right? Um, Everyone in there is so loving and supportive. I have seen numerous times people have really bad days and they'll post something or someone's like, hey, who's reaching out in the ether? And all of a sudden someone will pop up like, it's me, I'm having the worst day. And, it really is like big life stuff. Like you were saying, like, it's not like all of us just live the easiest, breeziest lives. And everyone races to support them. And it is so beautiful to watch because I don't have to be in the middle of it. Like you all have made your own friendships and it's so beautiful to watch the support from people who like just joined all the way to the people who have, my ride or die been there from the beginning. And everyone jumps in and helps each other. Go, go, you know who you are, buddy. I adore you. You cheer everybody up. And you make us laugh with the playfulness, which honestly is something that I really need help with because I don't play as much as I should. Like my work life balance is a little off sometimes. So even just like having a GIF war or a meme war is so much fun just to have like 5 minutes where I space out and do that. and everyone jumping in, and it's fun, and we have the chats once in a while, and everyone is so loving and amazing and wonderful. And you know, just from like a more analysis type approach, being able to track people's dreams and then seeing things end up happening, or how like we're all kind of dreaming of a certain theme during a time period, or we're all getting like senses of certain things and how they end up coming to fruition. Like, it's amazing. So thank you, Jason, for being a part of it. And for all of you who are a part of the Discord, if you're not a part of the Discord, you don't have to be. It's not mandatory. It's free. It's like its own little private server. Um, Everyone can just be themselves in there. It's a place if you want love and support. Turn off your notifications because there's going to be a ton of them. But use it for what it is. It's a place of resources. It's a place of connecting, and it's a place to learn. And I'm overwhelmed every day. I'm not gonna lie. I get all misty eyed every once in a while because I'll see everyone just like loving and supporting each other, and I'm like, wow, like I get to witness this, and it's not me, it's not mine. Technically it's mine, but it's just how awesome it is that everyone has come together at the time in our lives that we have.
Y'all are great. That's all I got. I'm not great at endings.
All right. Well, I love you all. Thank you for listening. And Jason, I'm going to say it again. And I know I'm going to make you uncomfortable, and I'm doing it on purpose. I love you. I'm really, really, really proud of you. And thank you for staying.